Okay, so we're going to talk about mitosis today, and we will see how far you guys get in class with the activity. So basically with the cell cycle, this is going to be the only subject where multiplication and division mean the same thing. So we want more cells, so we're multiplying, but in order to do that, we also are dividing. So it's kind of crazy to think that they both can mean the same thing. So here's kind of just like a funny little meme here. Someone just said, real fast, explain cell division, and we have a cell, and it gets bigger, and it starts to divide, and then we split. And obviously it's more detailed than that, but that's kind of what we're looking for when we're talking about division and cell cycle. So by the end of the class, you're going to be able to explain the problems that growth causes cells, describe how cell division solved the problems of cell growth, and identify the parts of the chromosome. So 1, as the cell grows, there's going to be more demands that are placed on its DNA. So what does that mean? Think of this restaurant, for example. It's pretty small. Our kitchen staff is only big enough to serve the current size of your restaurant. So if we expanded the restaurant and had allowed more area for more people to come in, we also would have to expand the kitchen staff. We couldn't keep the same or else they'd be overrun and it'd be too much on the kitchen staff. So similarly, or similar causes, but a cell can't expand its DNA. We can't just expand on DNA. A cell's DNA is only big enough to service a small cell. So when the cell does start to get big, it's going to place more demands on the DNA, and there's really nothing we can do about it because the DNA cannot expand. So there is a solution, which we'll get to in a second. Also, there is a library, I think, off of Tesson Ferry. And another way to think about this, let's say every single person in St. Louis is going to use this one library. So let's say you want the Hunger Games. Do you think it's going to be checked out already? Probably. If every single person in St. Louis goes to this library, any book that you want, there's probably going to be 1,000 people waiting list just to get a book. So like our cell, there are only 46 chromosomes in each cell. A bigger cell would still have the same number of chromosomes, but would have more to share with, and it wouldn't be able to keep up. Unfortunately, that's what it's going to be like. Another problem we see is it's harder to transport material in and out. I believe your notes say it takes longer to transport the material in and out, so just make sure to put that on your thing. Surface area to volume ratio. The surface area to volume ratio decreases as cell increases. There's not a spot for this on your notes, but go ahead and put this on the side next to this comment so you have that information, because later you're going to do an activity with surface area and volume ratio. Okay? All right, so what that means is if our surface area is increasing or our volume is decreasing, it's going to cause, or the increase in the size is going to decrease the surface area to volume ratio, which basically, that's fancy for saying the rate of diffusion decreases as the cell grows. So in cells, we talked about diffusion and things getting across the membrane. Well, the cell needs nutrients, needs to get rid of waste products. And when that happens, and our cell gets bigger, the cell can't do that. It's going to take longer for things to get across the cell because it's so big, and it's going to take longer to get rid of waste. So it's really hard on the cell when we're getting bigger. So what is the solution? The cell's going to divide. Once we get too big, it's going to split into a new cell. And we want 2 identical cells. So the first cell is going to have the exact same information as the second cell. Why might we do this? There's 3 reasons. Growth, repair, replace. Notice it says maintenance, but if you put like a slash line and write repair, that'd be good because that's repair and maintenance are basically the same thing. So I always tell people, why do we need new cells? GR, growth, repair, replace. So let's go over these a little bit more detail. Oh, there we are. Really cute right there. Day 1, that is what we all looked like, 1 cell. So after retrieval, this is the very first day, all of us were made, 1 little tiny cell. So if we didn't have mitosis, we would stay in this spot right here forever. We would never grow. We'd never be able to divide. So because of mitosis, when this cell gets too big, after about 1.5 days, it splits into 2. Then those 2 split into 4, and then 4 to 8. 8 to 16, and they keep dividing to get more and more cells. Eventually, we form this thing called a blastocyst, which is a hollow ball of many, many cells. Now, each cell is the same, has the exact same information, but as it starts to divide, the cells do become more specialized. So they'd say, okay, this cell is going to be part of the liver. This cell is going to be part of the brain. This cell is going to be part of the stomach. So as we start to develop, each kind of cell gets its own specialized job. But we do all start off at this stage, and without mitosis, we wouldn't be able to grow into an embryo. Now this isn't just for humans. Here's this little mealworm here. This bug also had to grow as well when it started as one cell. Repair. So think about it. Anybody in here, and I'm sure everyone has gotten some sort of injury. So like a cut, whether it be really deep or just a paper cut on the surface. Our cells need to be able to repair. Anybody have stitches in here before? That kind of brings your skin together to help with the repair and healing process. With the skin being closed, it can easily repair. Then if we kept it open like this, once it's wound together, it's going to help with the healing process. So our cells have to be able to repair, or else we would be walking around with open wounds all the time. If our skin never repaired and you got a cut, you'd just be walking around with open wounds that could cause infections. Right, maintenance or replacement. So examples, we have skin cells. Think about this, your skin cells, okay? So with your skin cells, you have dead cells on the surface of your skin. That comes off all the time. They replace each other every 27 days. So anybody ever heard of the saying, so with the saying, you should replace your mattress every 8 to 10 years. And that's because all of your dead cells get onto the mattress, and over many years, your mattress can gain about 20 to 50 pounds of just your dead skin cells, which is nasty. But that does happen. Every time you change clothes, you take your shirt off, take your pants off, you lose skin cells. That outer layer of your skin is all dead cells, and they get replaced from underlying layers about every 27 days. Your stomach lining, we talked about enzymes. Your stomach is mostly an acidic environment. So look how long they last, about 5 days. Those are constantly being replaced because it's so acidic. And your red blood cells last about 120 days. Okay, let's talk about the structure of a chromosome. And we already know this. You might want to write this. I don't think there's a spot for this on your paper. But when cells divide, each cell will need a copy of the genetic material. So what do we mean by that? Okay, the copy of the genetic material. Well, the genetic material is going to be DNA. And we said when we need a new cell, we need more DNA. And all of you already know this process. When we make more DNA, we are doing DNA replication. So we will revisit this again. As the cells divide, we want the exact same DNA in each cell. So it's going to divide, and we're going to get DNA in each one. Okay, so whoever came up with all these words thought it would be a good idea to start everything with this C. And it can be kind of confusing, so we're going to kind of go through these pretty slow to make sure everyone is on the right page. But it can be pretty confusing because they all look the same. So we'll start with a chromosome. This kind of X-shaped picture over here is a chromosome. And notice it has all this little loose string in the inside here. Does anybody know what that is? If you look here, that is our DNA. So our DNA is normally, we say the double helix, it's in this long stringy form, and that form's called chromatin. And I remember that with thin chromatin, because look how thin and wiry this is. Now when our DNA is just in chromatin, it's kind of like all squiggly lines in the nucleus, and it's really hard to divide when our DNA is kind of all over the place like that. So what happens is when we get ready to divide, the DNA is going to start to coil up in this X-like shape here. See how it's coiling up here? To give us a chromosome. Now this is easier to divide, right? We have one side and we have one side, and they can split in half. So each cell gets the exact same information. So it's a lot more organized than if it was just to be squiggly lines all over. So our chromosome is this X shape. Chromatin is all the thin, loose DNA. Okay, so when we duplicate the chromosomes, it's made of 2 chromatids. So here's a chromatid, here's a chromatid, each with the identical information. So 2 chromatids make up a chromosome. Okay, one more C word here, centromere, that's right here. Think center, centromere, it's at the center and it connects the 2 chromatids together. And that is the centromere. Okay, chromosome, 1 chromatid. Other chromatid. Centromere holds them together. Remember we talked about a gene? A gene is a segment of DNA that codes for a trait. So here's the gene, it's one section of DNA. Alright, you don't need to write this down. On Monday we're going to go over this in a lot of detail. We're going to spend all Monday learning about the different steps. So I'm just briefly going to talk about it. But basically we need to grow, replicate, and divide for the cells. That's the whole process of mitosis. And there's 2 main stages. So the first stage is going to be interphase. And that is where we do most of the growing. This is where our DNA is going to replicate, and we prepare for mitosis. And there's different phases, G1, S, and G2, and that's kind of the different phases of interphase. Again, don't stress about it yet. We're going to go over this on Monday. Cell does spend most of its time here because we have a lot of growing to do, and we have to replicate our DNA, which is a pretty important process. Then we go through mitosis. And here's all the phases: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And at the end, we'll end up with 2 identical cells with the exact same information. Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking at for the cell cycle. So hopefully you guys were able to get something out of this. You also will have some reading to do, and I will see you guys on Monday. Have a good weekend. Oh, here's a picture real quick. Again, most of the time in interphase, and then here's our mitosis. Okay, now it's over.